Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. This is going to be my first video that I ever post, and I am super stoked. I have been wanting to make this channel for literally a good 6 years now, and it's just never happened for a variety of reasons. So I'm really hoping that 2022 is the year I can get it up and running. I have literally a million video ideas I've been jotting down over the past few years for you guys that I've been wanting to film. I am obviously really into beauty. This is kind of an eyeshadow palette tag. And I'm also a registered dietitian, so I'm hoping to do health and nutrition videos as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, I really hope you stick around for my new content of 2022. But I am no lighting expert, so this is just what we're working with at the moment. Got a combination of natural light, I have a ring light, but literally kind of wherever I sit, honestly, what I'm struggling with is I'm just really pale, and I look pale like no matter where I am in my room. So, send help. Any lighting advice you have, gladly leave down in the comments below. It'd be really appreciated. But without further ado, I wanted to get into an eyeshadow palette tag. So I figured this would be a good first video for me to do because it's one that doesn't require a whole lot of kind of creativity on my part. I'm just kind of doing another tag, so I don't feel quite as stressed as some other videos I was initially planning for my first video, just because I feel like it's a little easier for me to talk when I don't have to come up with all the content by myself, basically. So without further ado, let's get into the eyeshadow palette tag. This is one that is from Samantha March and Allie Glines. I love both of them, and we'll talk about my eyeshadow palettes. So to start off with, I kind of want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not someone that has a huge eyeshadow palette collection. I like to have a very, not minimalist collection by any means, but a very well curated collection. I don't like having a whole lot of eyeshadow palettes because it honestly stresses me out. I also tend to like palettes that are a bit on the smaller side, and especially in more recent years, I've been really going for honestly like quads and trios, but I still do have a decent number of larger eyeshadow palettes. So we're going to kind of go through those today and answer the questions in the tag. So I have a little notepad down here. If you see me glancing down, I'm looking at the questions. So the first one is my all-time favorite. And I really don't have a palette that is just like my all-time favorite that I think stands head and shoulders above all my other eyeshadow palettes. But I was kind of looking at my collection, and there is one that has beat the test of time in terms of, it's just really stayed in my collection. Through all the declutters I've had, which I'm really cutthroat in my declutters, I do not hold back. And despite all my declutters, one eyeshadow palette has kind of withstood the test of time, and it is the Lorac Unzipped palette, which is still available as far as I know, and I just love this palette. It's actually what I'm wearing today, so I can show you. And just the rosy tones in this palette really complement my blue eyes and my fair skin really well. I have cool undertones to my skin, so these kinds of more pinky neutrals, rosy tone neutrals, these kind of more burgundies work really well on my skin tone. So I really like this palette. I think it's beautiful. I actually prefer the formula of the Lorac Unzipped palettes I prefer that formula over their Lorac Pro palettes, like, the Mega Pros and the standard Pro palettes too. Those are just kind of powdery. Whenever you put your brush in the pan, powder just kind of explodes and goes everywhere. But for these, it's still like on the powdery side, but it's not quite as powdery. So I find it a little easier to work with. I also think the shimmers and the Lorac Unzipped palettes are a lot better than the Lorac Pro palettes. Why can't I say Loracs today? But anyway, the ones in the regular kind of Lorac Pro palettes, they're a little more soft and muted, which if that's what you like, then you go for, then I think that's fine. But for me, I like my shimmers to have a little bit more of an impact, and I think the ones in the Unzipped palettes are a bit better in that regard. But I just love these tones. It performs really well, and yeah, it's withstood many a declutter in my collection, and I still use it. So that's the one I would say would be an all-time favorite. And then next up was the next question. New favorite. So this is a pretty easy one. As you will see going through my eyeshadow palettes, like I said, I love pinky tone neutrals, I love rose golds, I love mauves, and I love burgundies, that sort of thing. And one that came out that was honestly kind of getting like ripped apart in like the comments of Trend Mood and stuff was this, the Tartlet Juicy palette. Oh, you can see me. There we go. And look, make fun of me all you want. These are the tones that I reach for all the time, like literally all the time. And I got so much use out of this palette in 2021, which is what I'm aiming for. Like, it's all good and well to buy a really adventurous color story that's like a bunch of, greens and blues or whatever. but I don't use those shades in reality. I use these shades. And one of the things I really like about this palette is that it's very easy to make a look. Like, I get overwhelmed. I kind of get analysis paralysis with, like I said, bigger palettes or palettes where the shades are kind of scattered all over the place and they don't really have the cohesive color story. So in this case, you have a very clear, you know, this row down here is very pinky neutral. This one's still pinky neutral, but it's a bit more of a warmer pink. And this one is a very neutral row. So I can kind of go into this palette and be like, I'm feeling more neutral today. I'll go in with this row, or I'm a bit, you know, pinkier mood today. I can go in with that row. So I just really like it about that. I never feel like overwhelmed when I go into this palette. And the quality is pretty good. They also came out with a larger Juicy palette too last year. If I can, I'll throw up a picture if I can figure out how to do that. But that one seemed to not get as good of reviews as this guy right here. But this one I think performs really, really well. It blends pretty effortlessly. Sorry, I'm still getting used to looking at the camera. But yeah, I really liked it. And so if this color story speaks to you, I think that it's a good investment and I would recommend. The next question is keep for the memories, a palette that you keep for the memories. And for me, that is the Lorac Mega Pro 4. Like, it's massive, clearly. It's like the size of my face. But yeah, I don't really go for these kinds of palettes anymore just because I mentioned I'm not really in a big palette phase of my life anymore. But this palette I got when I was honestly having a pretty rough time in my life, and this palette just brought me so much joy at that time. Like, I can just remember, you know, I don't want to get into a lot of details here, but basically I was having a lot of medical problems. And I remember being in a lot of pain and, you know, I'd go take my painkillers and I'd go sit in bed and I would swatch this eyeshadow palette and I'd go play with it in my eyes. And it just brought me so much joy during that time of my life. So even though I don't really reach for it a whole lot nowadays, like, this is one I'll never get rid of it. It's, you know, very sentimental to me and it means a lot. And it got me through some tough times, this palette, which sounds ridiculous, but I know I'm not the only one that uses makeup as kind of my therapeutic, you know, me time. And this palette really, you know, was good for me in that time. So I'll never get rid of it. Like, I don't really use it that much anymore. I do like, you know, I said before, the rock quality of the shadows and everything. This one I don't like as much as the Unzipped just because it's a bit more powdery, but I really like that shade right here. Obviously because it's pink. But I really like this last row here because it's a lot of purples. This shade down here, I think it's called like Unicorn or something. Yeah, Unicorn. It's pretty unique. It's kind of a little bit of a duochrome. It's got some purples and blue tones in there. So it's a really nice shade and I love the purples. But yeah, don't use it as much as I used to, but keep it for the memories. And then next up, we have an underrated palette in my collection. So for that one, I'm going to pick the Viseart Paris Edit palette, which I feel like in some circles that I watch on YouTube, it's kind of like appropriately rated. But other ones I feel like really kind of pass over these little Viseart small mini palettes, which this one, it does technically, I think, have like, is it 12? Yeah, 12 shades in here. And even though it has 12, it never feels overwhelming to me. Like, the pan sizes are pretty tiny. Like, there's my finger for comparison. And I just love the color story in here. It's obviously got some pinks and mauves, which I love, but it's cooler over here and it's a bit warmer over here. And it goes from light to deep, which I really appreciate. And yeah, it's nice quality. Viseart makes really good eyeshadows. The mattes are a bit more like firmly pressed than what I typically enjoy, but I still like them because they're not super pigmented off the bat. Which is someone who is as fair as I am, I appreciate shadows that are not super pigmented off the bat. I like that I can build them up gradually because otherwise it looks like a clown face pretty quickly. But yeah, it's a nice one. And I don't know. I feel like I said some channels I watch, they talk about it and they kind of hype them up. But a lot of people tend to pass over these. And I think they're just such a good size. Like, I would love, in general, just for like sustainability reasons, if we could kind of get more palettes that had eyeshadows that were this, you know, big. Just because I feel like we throw so much makeup away, and that's a whole, you know, other rabbit hole we could go down. But I just really like the size of this guy. So he's really convenient for travel. It's a really good color story. If you're not into pinks and mauves like me, there's other colors you can get besides this particular color story. But yeah, I just think it's kind of underrated in my opinion. And if you can still get your hands on it or any of the other ones that are this size, I would recommend. So the next question is a palette that is not a favorite, but it's one you also can't get rid of, which I totally can sympathize with. And for me, that is another one from Viseart, actually. It is the Viseart, I think, Amethyst? Yeah, Amethyst Theory palette. So Viseart came out with these Theory palettes several years ago, and they were kind of like small little color stories like this. That I think there was like a green one and like a red one, and I have the purple one, obviously. And I don't use it a whole lot, but like for me, I don't wear a whole lot of color, but when I do, I wear purple. And this is such a nice little purple palette. Like, and part of it, why I keep it honestly, is for this shimmer right here. It's like a purpley kind of taupe. And it is just so stinking pretty on the eyes. Like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I don't wear it a whole lot, but when I want to inject some purple or some color into my life, this is the palette I reach for. And so even though I only use it a couple times a year, it's not going anywhere because I do like it for that little pop of purple in my life when I want some color. I'm also a big college football fan. The college I went to, one of its colors is purple. It's purple and orange. So I can use that on game day and all that fun stuff. So, you know, I haven't been going to football games, unfortunately, because of COVID. So maybe someday we'll go to football in person again. That'd be nice. But yes, I definitely do not use it a lot. But when I do, I really enjoy it. It's the same quality as the other palette I showed you. It's good. Like I said, the mattes aren't my favorite, but they're fine. They perform well. So next up we have favorite collaboration, which honestly guys, I don't own a lot of palettes that are collaborations. Collaborations were cool when they first started, but like recently it's just been craziness. I feel like collaborations, like everyone and their mama is creating a collaboration with a brand or makeup company. It's just, I don't know. I have some feelings about collaborations, clearly. But what I do appreciate is when makeup companies collaborate with people who are kind of smaller influencers, micro influencers, basically people that just aren't, you know, having a million followers or even like several 100,000 followers on YouTube. I do really appreciate that. And I did actually pick up 2 collaborations this year, but the one that I use the most is the Ofra and Samantha March palette, which Samantha is, you know, one of the people who created this tag. So we're talking about her palette, but it's the Life's a Draft palette. And I just, like I said before, I love me some mauves, some rosy tones, and so this is more of a mauvey palette, and so it is right up my alley. I love the tones in here. They're so pretty. So it has the eye shades down here, and then it's got the blush and highlighter and bronzer. For me, I mean, it's a little bit of a bummer that these are included in the palette. Like, you know, the case is always made. You can use these as eyeshadows in addition to using them as face shades. And I do agree that like the blush and the highlighter actually go pretty well with the palette. And then the bronzer is just like significantly warmer than the rest of them. And for me, there was like no way on God's green earth I'd be able to use that as a bronzer. Like that is way too dark and way too yellow for me. So it's kind of annoying because I can't really do anything with it. Like it doesn't really go with any of the rest of the shadows, and then I can't use it as a bronzer. But the highlighter is really pretty as an inner corner highlight on me, and the blush is nice too as an eyeshadow. It's a bit too warm for me on my cheeks, but I really like it. I've been using it a lot. It was one of the top palettes I used last year, especially in like the winter, when in the kind of the cooler months. This was really speaking to me. I've already been whipping it out again in January, and it's been getting a lot of love. So yeah, that's my favorite collaboration palette. And then after the collaboration, we have 2021 favorite, which we already talked about one of them. It's that Tartlet Juicy palette. I freaking love that palette. It's been busted out pretty much, gosh, at least weekly since I got it, I think. And it's just a really nice palette. Another one though that I do love, that, I mean, it's a palette, but it's a quad. It's the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk quad. And I have just used the crap out of this thing. Like you can't really tell on camera, but there's like a significant dip in this shade down here. And it just really works well with my coloring and everything. And I like me some Charlotte Tilbury, okay? Like say what you will, but anytime that woman comes out with a new product in her line, posts a picture on Instagram, you know, I'm just always like, ooh, what is that? So I don't know, Charlotte Tilbury is just one of those brands that really gets me, man. But I love this quad. It travels with me a lot when I am traveling, you know, not during the pandemic. And yeah, it's just so easy, and it always looks good on me. Like I will do like a look with this palette that'll take me like 2 seconds, and I'll get like more compliments than when I do a more complicated look. Like today I have more shadows in my eyes than, you know, what's in here. So it's just funny how that works, right? But yeah, that's definitely still a favorite for me. That I use the Tartlet Juicy. I used this a lot. I did use the Ofra Life's a Drac quite a bit, and then I used a lot of cream shadows, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, those are probably my top 3 of 2021, I would say. So yeah, I still am loving this dude. He's amazing. And then after that, next question, oh, didn't expect to love. So this one, I thought long and hard about this question, and I really don't have a palette to give for this question. I should probably give a preface, like impulse buy is not in my vocabulary. That's just not how I function. I think very long and hard before I make purchases, and I don't impulse buy like at all. And so like I have never bought anything like, oh, I don't think this will work for me, and then I'm like pleasantly surprised when like I do get it and it works for me. That's just like not how I function. And I guess maybe there could be like a way that I was given a palette or something and then I didn't like it, but like I'm not really gifted makeup by anybody. And if I am, it's like a gift card where I go out and I buy what I want to buy. So I've just never really experienced that. And I'm like a makeup collector. I don't collect makeup and like try it and keep it for collector's sake. So I really could not think of anything that I bought, you know, I was like presently surprised that I ended up liking it. I bought some palettes I thought I would like and then ended up not liking them. That's a whole other thing. But to buy one and be like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty nice, like I've just never really experienced that. So can't really answer that question. But the one after that is one that sparks joy. And so this is when we're going to talk about the good old Club Nebula palette by Kaleidos. I never tried anything from Kaleidos before. I was always super intrigued, but like kind of intimidated, honestly, because a lot of their stuff is like super colorful and kind of like spacey and new agey, and it's just like not normally my vibes, but I'm fascinated by it. And I've been wanting to try something from them for a while, and then Angie came out with this palette, and for like a colorful palette, this one didn't freak me out. Like it made sense to me. And what I loved too was like the variation. We've got light shades, medium shades, and deep shades. Like a lot of the times when I see these colorful kind of palettes, they tend to be really light or like really deep. They kind of aren't always, you know, this kind of gradient that we have in this palette, which I really appreciate. And like I said before, when I bought this palette, I have like no intention of sitting down for me personally and doing full-on looks with this palette. That's just not my makeup style. Like maybe I will, or I did a couple times when I first got it, and maybe I will in the future, like using shades just out of here for funsies. But like in general for me, this is like a palette to add a pop to my eyeshadow. So I'll do a pretty neutral look and go in with one of like the nice topper shades over here, or I'll do a shade or like a neutral look where I'm wanting a kind of deeper eyeliner that isn't black, and I'll use one of these shades actually as eyeliner and go in with like just a brush and do it that way. So I use it for like a pop to inject some color and some fun into my makeup looks. And for me though, why I put it as a palette that sparks joy was I was honestly in a bit of a rut when it comes to makeup. I think with like the pandemic and everything, when it first kind of started up, I was just kind of like depressed because I couldn't wear makeup. Like for my work, I couldn't wear makeup or anything. I work in healthcare, and I was just really missing makeup. And then like a lot of the releases that were coming out honestly just didn't inspire me to like go, you know, pick up my makeup and play with it when I was having my days off or after work or what have you. And so I just got stuck in a rut for a while. And then when this palette came out, it was just the first thing that had really intrigued me in the makeup world in a very long time. And I was just kind of like, that is so cool. And I was just so fascinated by the packaging. Like, I think it's beautiful. And it just made me want to go into a makeup like space club, the Club Nebula, and have fun with these shadows. And I just, yeah, it just, every time I look at it, it just makes me smile. And yeah, it just really sparks joy. And I remember how this was kind of the palette that ignited my love of makeup again in, you know, 2021. So I really appreciate it for that. And I think from what I understand that this is like an actual limited edition palette. You know, like brands bring out these limited edition palettes all the time and then they bring them back. From what I understand, this is like truly limited edition, so I don't think I can link it below or anything, but yeah, it sparks joy. It makes me happy, and I display it in my vanity so I can see the pretty artwork. So there you go. Okay, so I got a little rambly while talking about this palette, so I'm going to try again. So basically, this was the question, the palette that this is my newest palette in my collection. So So I didn't buy a whole lot of palettes at the end of last year. I think I picked this one up in like, was it September or something like that? But this is the Sigma Rosie palette, and I actually got it in the bundle that they did with Samantha March. She's kind of popping up a lot in this video, but she came out with a few things last year that I really liked. So there we go. And this, I've been wanting to try Sigma makeup for a while. I've had their brushes for like the longest time. And I feel like for the longest time, it was like, you know, the focus on Sigma was their brushes. Like they made makeup, but people didn't really talk about it that much or hype it up. But recently I feel like the eyeshadows specifically, people have been really talking up and saying how good they are. And so I've been really intrigued because I never tried anything from their makeup line before. And I can kind of see why people really like these. Like, first of all, like the obvious, like these tones clearly work really well for me, right? But the quality is good. I think the shimmers are nice. I think the mattes are nice. They're pigmented, but not too pigmented, which is, you know, a problem for me. And yeah, there's a really pretty like duochrome shade, and it just looks really nice. So my curiosity has been satisfied for now, but if I see anything from Sigma in the future, then I may pick it up for eyeshadow wise. I'm still intrigued by that Sigma Cinderella collection. I think that was absolutely stunning. I'm a huge Disney nerd over here, but I don't just buy makeup with Disney on it just for the sake of owning a Disney collaboration with the makeup. It has to be something that I actually can foresee myself using. And the eyeshadow palette just had shades in it that I couldn't really foresee myself using. And the eyeshadow or brushes, like the eyeshadow brush bundle, I think they had base brushes in it too, actually. So just the brush bundle. That one, if that ever goes on half price, like I am getting it. For me, I can't justify paying full price for the brush set, but if it ever goes half price, I'm getting it because I think it is absolutely stunning. Anyway, side, deviation. But point being, I did like this palette. I think it's nice. And for me, I really liked these kind of deeper pinks, like almost venturing into berry territory. For me, like my eyes are blue, clearly, and they look really blue when I wear blue, but they also can look quite green when I wear green, especially if I use these kinds of berry tones on my eyes. It can really make my eyes look green. So if I want to bring out the green in my eyes, I'll go for like an emerald top, these kinds of shades, and my eyes start to look very, very green. So just a fun way to kind of play with color and makeup and bringing out the colors in your eyes. But yeah, it's a nice palette and would recommend if you're interested in the Sigma eyeshadow formula. And then, is that the last one? No, one more. So the first palette I used in 2022, which apparently there was like a whole debacle where she initially put 2021 Samantha or something, but it's like supposed to be 2022, which, the first palette I used in 2021 is anyone's guess. I have absolutely no idea what it was. Maybe it was the Club Nebula palette. I don't know, because I wasn't really wearing much makeup at the time until I got that palette. But for 2022, I was trying to rack my brain, and I honestly, it may have been Samantha's palette actually, because I remember when January first rolled around, I was going through my makeup collection, and I was thinking about the ones I wanted to kind of focus on more on the cooler months, because I am a bit seasonal with some of my makeup, not all, but some of it. There's certain things I like to wear more in the cooler months versus the warmer months, etc. And this one just kind of screams cooler month palette to me. So I remember I pulled that out to use in the cooler months. And I think it may have been the first palette I used in 2021 or 22. I think. I can't remember honestly. Because for me, I do use a lot of little eyeshadow, like I said, cream eyeshadows, little trios, smaller ones too. And those were the actual first eyeshadows I used. I have been really loving the Kaja Bento Box trio. I have the shade, I think it's Chocolate Dahlia. That's I think the actual first thing I used eyeshadow wise in 2022. But I think palette wise, I want to say it was this one actually, funnily enough. So it's coming full circle, with Samantha in this video. But yeah, those are my answers to the eyeshadow palette tag. And I would love to know y'all's answers too. Hopefully this wasn't too painful of a video for anyone who's watching to sit through. It is my first one I'm going to be posting. So, if you are interested or have anything specific that you want me to talk about in future videos, let me know in the comments down below. I am definitely going to be doing videos where I talk about makeup for redheads because I am a natural redhead. So that's going to be a whole series. I'm also going to do a lot of videos talking about how to determine your undertone, because that is something that took me a very long time to figure out. And especially for redheads, it can be kind of hard to, I feel like, figure out your undertone because you get told one thing as a redhead and then you like try and figure out your undertone. You're like, but it's not matching up with what Pinterest is telling me. So I'm going to do a whole video about undertones. And I'm also going to be doing just some like health videos. Like I mentioned before, I'm a registered dietitian, so I plan on doing more nutrition videos and things like that, because there is like an interesting intersection of people who are interested in like makeup and beauty and people who are interested in kind of like nutrition and wellness. Like we've been seeing a real big spike in like vitamins and like Sephora and whatnot. So I'm definitely going to be doing some videos where I talk about vitamins, breaking down like the ones you actually need versus like, is this, you know, one you can buy here crap? Like what are the ones that are actually useful basically? And so I'm going to be doing a whole vitamin series where I talk about that a lot more in depth. But yeah, and just really just debunking videos in general. I kind of got on another train of thought thinking about like detox teas and stuff. But anyway, anything that you're wanting me to talk about nutrition wise, let me know in the comments down below, and I will make a little list or add to my list I already have of all my other video ideas, and we'll just kind of call it a day and go from there. So I love you guys, and I'll see you later.